Okay, here we go at last. Welcome everybody to my 100% free, for the love of the game, trading course. I don't know, course just sounds it sounds like scammy or something. So until I figure out a better word, like curriculum. Let's go with curriculum. That sounds nice and smart and not scammy, right? Because this is free. I'm not charging for any of this information. None of the information that I'm giving you should be charged for. It's all available for free already at various corners of the internet. But the point of me doing this is to compile it all in one place so that you guys, if you are interested in getting started trading, you're not wasting a bunch of weeks or months with a bunch of random information. You don't even know what pieces of the puzzle you're supposed to be putting together. That's what we're doing this for. We're putting it all in one spot. Today, I am going to get into the basics of like the chart setup, and it's primarily going to be focused through TradingView. So if you don't know what TradingView is, it's basically the number one most popular program in the world for charting. It's the most like highly integrated with any broker that you want to use, especially if you're trading with prop firms. Any indicators that you might want to use. It has a ton of different features. Basically anything that you could possibly want to be able to trade effectively. Has a very clean, easy user interface. It's no secret or accident why it's the most popular application in the world for charting. So mine is pulled up here. Yours is not going to look like anything like this when you first pull it up. What you do need to do to get TradingView is go to tradingview.com. Basically, it's just going to bring you to this page. The program itself is free. There are basically 2 monthly plans that you are going to have to enroll in to be able to actively trade the live markets, but the actual application is free and it's available for Windows, Mac, your mobile device or whatever, you know, because you could trade from your phone. You could trade from anywhere. That's why we love trading. I would definitely recommend just not using like the web version. Get the actual application downloaded on whatever device that you are going to be trading from. And I also highly recommend trading from an actual computer or laptop or something. If you have to use your phone, it's not impossible, but it's definitely not the ideal way to do it, especially as a beginner. You're just going to miss out on a lot of valuable information. But we are on tradingview.com. You can go to get started for free. It's going to bring you to this page, and you could already see there's various different plans here: Essential, Plus, Premium, Ultimate. You don't need any of these 3 right here. Essential is going to give you like 95% of the things that like I use even to this day. The only reason I personally have Premium, which I just recently got, is because I actually utilize the 30-second time frame. If you are a beginner, don't use the 15 or the 30-second time frame. It's way too chaotic, way too noisy. There's no reason why you should really be on there. And plus, it's $60 a month. You know, the other point of me making the series is so you're not wasting a bunch of money buying things that you don't need, buying indicators, people that are charging for courses or whatever else. Like, there's just no point. However, you will definitely want to get something like the Essential plan. $12.95 per month if you get it billed annually. If you want to do the monthly, which is what I do, $14.95. If you eventually upgrade to these, that's those prices right there. But like I said, Essential is all you're going to need in the first probably year or 2 of you trading. The only other monthly plan that you are going to need to trade the live markets for futures is CME data, and that is like $7 a month. It'll prompt you at whatever point when you're going through the sign up process to ask you if you want the live data. You need the live CME data to trade NASDAQ futures, ES futures. There's no way around that. If you're going to use TradingView, you need to pay basically the $7 a month. So if you get the Essential plan for $14.95 a month, pay your $7 per month in CME data, you're looking at what, $22 basically, which is nothing. However, I do want to say in general, before you start going in and buying all these things, definitely utilize the try free for 30 days. Obviously, any free trial that you could utilize, do it. You know, you might decide 30 days in that this is not even for you. I highly doubt that that'll be the case if you are already interested in trading, but you might as well use the free features while you can instead of paying money, because that is my biggest thing. Like I'll probably say it a million more times. Do not waste your money. Yes, at certain levels it will cost more money, but at the very beginning, there's no reason to just be shelling out a bunch of money. That being said, I'm gonna try to pull up what like the basic version is. We'll go to super charts. Okay, when you download or open TradingView for the first time, it's probably gonna look like this. You might not know if this is your first time like logging into TradingView, this might just look normal or whatever for you. Trust me, this is atrocious. Your charts are not going to look anything like this. They're going to look a lot more like mine. And that's not to say that you need the same colors or anything, but as you can see, everything is nice and simple. It's clean. And that's what you want when you're trading. You want a nice, clean, simple environment. You don't want a bunch of lines and just a bunch of chaoticness all over your charts, because it's gonna muddy the waters, if you will. So I do use 2 indicators, but this is basically what my charts look like when I'm trading. I don't add a lot. It's very simple, very clean. That is all I need to trade and make a bunch of fucking money off of these markets, is reading pure price action. And that is what I hope you guys do. If you want to learn from me, you guys are going to be able to learn to trade pure price action. And if we go back to the brand new version, yours is going to look something like this. I basically want to take you through my settings so that you could at least get like a baseline version of what I have. And if you want to change the color of your candles later, so be it. That's purely preference, but we're at least going to get you started with how my charts are set up. So if we go to settings, there's a lot of settings that I have that are already default, but in case they're not, I'm going to just take you through. This can be unchecked or checked. To me, people have preference on it. I just keep mine unchecked. It doesn't really change much. Body, I have mine set. If you like my specific colors, I have mine set to this specific green right here. It's just a light, calm green. And then I have my bearish candles set to like a dark gray. If we go back to the version that you guys are probably going to see when you open up, you're going to see bright green and bright red. And this is just like, I don't know, maybe you decide you will like this, but to me, you want something nice and calm and something that's just going to put you at ease. So if we go back to our chart settings here, those are my colors right there. I have all borders and wicks just black, and that's just because it's easier to see. If I change these to like a light green, it sort of gets a little harder to see over here. So I just keep it all black for the borders and wicks. Going down to session, you definitely want to have electronic trading hours on, opposed to regular trading hours. This is going to give you way more information of how the futures market is traded. If you go to regular trading hours, there's going to be a bunch of gaps and a bunch of just nonsense that's going to make it really difficult to trade and to mark out levels and to see what you're actually trading. So just keep electronic trading hours on if it's not already. You're going to keep adjust for contract changes, precision, keep that on default. In time zone, this is probably like the most important on this page. I live in Chicago. I'm in Central Time. But no matter where you live, have your time zone set to UTC4 New York. The entire exchange, the entire market, everything is based off of New York time, Eastern time. So if you have your charts set to Central Time or the West Coast time or something, all of your candles, everything is going to be mixed up. Nothing is going to make sense. And it's just going to be a disaster, especially when you're trading off of like session times and everything like that. Everything is going to be messed up. So just no matter where you live, have your time zone set to New York time. Going down to status line, I have kept all of these pretty much to default. In case any of them have changed over the years that I've been trading, you could just copy my exact settings right here. We'll go down to scales and lines, currency and units. I have mine always visible. Scale modes, visible on mouse over, unchecked, auto, no overlapping labels, plus button, countdown on bar close. Countdown to bar close is nice because that'll actually give you the time left within the candle, which is super important when you're about to like determine if you're taking an entry or not. All of these, if you guys just want to screenshot this or whatever, just, copy and paste my settings right there, basically. Okay, next we're going to go to canvas here. This is a lot of, pretty significant information because it has everything to do with the way that your charts are presented. Background, I have mine solid. The only other option here is gradient, and that's just going to make it so you could have 2 colors, which I don't know. Maybe you like this. I see some people have this. I personally don't. I just keep mine a solid white. Grid lines, I just keep mine off because when we are moving the mouse around anyways, you pretty much have like active grid lines set. So like if you want to see where the high of this wick is, you just put your mouse there, look over, and you can see it's at 29,310. Grid lines, like I was saying before, the more you have on your charts, the messier it is, the more it's going to distract you. Crosshair, I have mine set to just sort of like a faint gray right here. That is what we are looking at when I move my mouse around. If you want to change it to red or something, so be it. All right, for watermark, this is completely preference as well. I just keep mine on replay mode, which basically just shows nothing in the background unless I'm backtesting or something. I'll give you an example of what it would show if you have it on ticker. So that's just basically showing you in the background what actual ticker that you're on. If we switch it over to ES or something, you can see switches. Like I said, I like to have minimal things on my charts. That's completely preference to you. Maybe if you're a beginner, you want to see that to make sure you're not like trading the wrong instrument or something. Everything that I have from scales down below is all default. If any of yours are different, you could just change them to mine. Okay, for trading, buy and sell buttons, you definitely want to have this on. This is these two buttons up here in the top left. This is how I enter a lot of my trades, whether I'm taking a long, I buy. If I'm taking a short, I'm selling. Sometimes it's actually how I exit trades as well, unless my levels get hit, my take profit gets hit, or my stop loss, then obviously it'll take me out of the trade. I'll go through the specifics of actually putting in orders later, but definitely have that option on. One-click trading, this is preference. I personally have it on because as soon as I click buy, if I'm logged into my broker and I click buy, it's going to enter me into a trade immediately. There's no confirmation page or anything like that. It's just I click it and I'm in. If you are a beginner, maybe take this off so you don't accidentally click it and you're entering a trade and losing money. And I keep mine on. I've always had it on. You could probably keep yours on. Execution sound, this is up to you if you want to have like a little chime or something when you get into a trade. I have mine off. Basically, the rest of this stuff right here, you could probably just copy my settings. This should be mostly default. Alerts, I personally don't get any alerts. I have all these boxes checked, but I don't set any alerts for myself. When I'm trading, I'm actively looking at the charts, so I don't need any alerts. Events, I've never changed this. You could just leave it exactly how it is. So as we get into the actual application itself, on the left side here, you are going to see basically your standard toolbars. So you're going to have different lines, you're going to have boxes, you're going to have Fibonacci retracements, you're going to have these cool little take profit and stop loss boxes right here. Just basically all the tools that you could use to mark up your charts. Another one that I utilize a lot if I'm marking out certain levels is the text box. So I could say, you know, swing high here, put a little line there, you know, just label things out. I don't like putting a lot on my charts, but there's certain things that I will mark out if they are significant to what I'm looking at for the day. You're going to kind of find out what tools you like to use and what you don't. If you want to start with what I think are my most commonly used ones, you could basically start with the Gann box, the long position tool, the short position tool, the rectangle, the trend line, and the fib retracement. Now, if you're wondering how to get all these up here, you're going to be able to find them all through this little toolbar over here. Say you want to add Ray to that little box up there, you're just going to click the little favorites and it's going to put it up there for you. What I would recommend doing once you get your TradingView program installed and you're at this point, just kind of go through all these little options and see what they do, see what you like, see what you might want to have on your little favorites box. You guys at this point kind of know how I operate. I have pretty minimal things going on. I only have, what, 7 little tools up here. I only probably use like 4 of them commonly. If we go to the top here, this is where all of your time frames are going to be. Like I said earlier, if you guys don't get that higher up plan, if you just have like that basic plan, you're probably not going to have access to the 15 or the 30 second. It's not a big deal. You do not need to be on those time frames anyways, but the time frames you are probably going to want to have pulled up and favorited, the ones that I use are the 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, the 5 minute, 15 minute, 1 hour, 4 hour, and the daily. I use all of these time frames throughout the day for different reasons. At the beginning of the day, I might use the daily chart. As you can see, we are just nuking to the upside. To sort of get like my overall daily bias, I might use the 4-hour chart to see kind of where we are, you know, headed in the general direction. We are nuking in this case to the upside, but in cases where, you know, we might be coming down, retracing down into some gaps, this is good to see kind of where we are headed in the larger time frames. Larger time frames are always going to hold so much more value because they have so much more data within them. It's going to tell you way more accurate information of what the market is actually doing. If we go down to the 1 hour, this is kind of like a time frame that I use at the beginning of the day to see if we are aligning with those really high time frames like the 4-hour or the daily charts. Same thing with the 15 minute. If we are disrespecting certain gaps on the 15 minute, my narrative sort of starts to change. If we're bearish on the 15 minute but we're bullish on the 4-hour, you know, we have time frame misalignment that might affect if I'm going to enter a trade or not. These are all things that I'll get into later, but I'm just showing you the value of using multiple time frames. 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute, 5 minute. These are like my entry time frames. You know, when we get certain signatures on the 1 minute or the 5 minute, that is where I will actually execute a trade, enter a trade, or exit a trade. That's sort of like the fine tuning time frames. One of the biggest misconceptions when people are just getting into trading is they think traders just operate on one time frame, and there might be like a small percentage that do, but most day traders are operating on multiple time frames, usually 3, 4, 5, or 6. I am personally probably on the 1, the 5, and the 15 most throughout an actual trading session. My 4 hour and 1 hour, those are just sort of what I'm gauging at the beginning of the day, or the daily in that case as well. But really the 1 minute to the 15 minute, those are my bread and butter time frames. Sort of like with this toolbar over here, to get these actual specific time frames up on this little favorites bar, you're just gonna go click the drop down menu. Like I said, only certain plans will give you access to the seconds chart, but everyone should pretty much have the minutes, the hours, and the days. And you could kind of play around as you start trading. You can see which time frames you might want to add or take out. Some people have the weekly or the monthly. I'm a day trader. My trades last like 20 minutes, so what's happening on the monthly is pretty irrelevant to what's going on in my trading session, but you might be different. The point of me making these videos also is for you to see what I do and you tweak it however you want, because you are your own business, you're your own trader. Indicators. I only use 2 indicators, and they're not like the common ones that you hear about all the time, like the MACD and RSI and all these, you know, just very entry level indicators that people use. For me, the only indicators that I use are specifically indicators that just help me mark out my charts faster instead of doing it manually. So if I go to this, the only 2 indicators that I use that I care about are the fair value gap by Nephew Sam. That will basically mark out my 5 minute fair value gaps, my 15, whatever I actually have like activated on the indicator is what it'll mark out for me. If you are watching this video on how to set up TradingView, you probably don't even know what a fair value gap is. That's fine. But if you plan on trading the way that I trade, which is ICT, smart money concepts, fair value gaps are like an extremely important part of your daily trading. And then ICT, kill zones, and pivots, this is basically going to show your session times. Both of them are completely free. All you have to do is just type these titles into the search bar, favorite them, and you click on them, and then they'll automatically come up on your charts. So I have them so you can't see them at the moment right now, but if I click the ICT kill zones, it's going to bring up my session times. Okay, so we're zooming out here on the 5 minute just so we could see a little better. You can see we have various different sessions. We have Asia, we have London, New York AM, we have lunch, we have New York PM. The 3 main sessions that we care about in our style of trading is Asia, London, and New York AM. Those are the most significant, highly volatile, institutionally involved sessions that we base our trades off of. That's not to say that New York lunch and PM are not significant points of trading hours, but the 3 that we're really caring about at all times are Asia, London, and New York AM high and low. Okay, so if we actually go into the settings portion of the ICT kill zones, all of these are checked right here. They're all labeled for what they are, and these are the times. Now, I will say automatically, there are different traders that have different specific times in these windows right here. Mine is sort of like a happy medium of the whole spectrum, if you will, and it's what I have found for the markets to have the most significant institutional involvement, if you will. So if you basically just want to screenshot this and put those same times in, you can. If you like my colors, they're basically just this 4th row of purple, this reddish color, green, yellow, and sort of light blue color. I like them. They're nice and calm, nice and clean. And if you want to take a look at the rest of these settings here, pretty much all of mine are default. There's really no real reason to change a lot of these settings, but I still highly recommend double checking to make sure that none of yours are different. So that is all I have for my ICT kill zones. We are going to get into the significance of session times in a later episode, but for now, have them on your chart. If ever you want to hide them, just click the little eyeball here and it'll take them away. Now, if we go over to the fair value gap indicator, you're gonna see it's gonna show me everywhere where there is a 15-minute or an hourly fair value gap. Now, you can go into the settings and you can add the 5-minute, the 1-minute, or any other time frame. I find if I add the 5-minute and the 1-minute, it's going to just muddy up my charts. It's going to make everything way more chaotic than it needs to be. As you can see, if I add these two on, it's just going to add a whole bunch of nonsense on there. The reason I have this indicator on for the 15-minute and the 1 hour is that those gaps, the 15 and the 1 hour in particular, are the most significant to see if we are reacting, if we are rejecting those levels, if we are respecting them, if we're disrespecting them. So if I can see in real time where a 15-minute gap is, regardless of what time frame I'm on, it's going to show me on every time frame. If I'm on the 1 minute, it's still going to show me the 15-minute. If I'm on the 3-minute, it's still going to show me that 15-minute, which is nice because a lot of the times I'm just sitting on the 1 minute or the 5-minute, but it's still really useful to know if I have a 15-minute gap right here. You guys might decide that you like the 5-minute on and you don't want to have the hourly on. Totally fine. Once you start trading and getting in a rhythm after, weeks and months of doing this, you are going to be able to fine tune everything on your own. And you might come back and look at this and be like, what the hell are his settings? I hate his settings, but this is what I like to trade with. You might be successful in a completely different looking chart setup. You might decide that you just want to mark things out yourself, and that is why we have these box tools up here. And if we take off this indicator, you can see, boom, 1 hour gap right there. The more that you trade, the more that you're going to be able to identify gaps without even marking them out. I just have them on the chart. That is all I use for indicators. It's all I recommend for you to use, but always use what you are comfortable using. Now, if we go over to this tab right here, this is going to be all of your symbols that you are trading. If we go back to the TradingView website, you're going to see indices, stocks, futures, forex, crypto. You're going to have a bunch of these, all these different things, and you could keep all of these up if you want. You might be interested in what the Apple stock is doing, but for me, I trade one thing, and that's NQ. So you're probably wondering, well, why do I have these 4 up here? Well, NQ and MNQ are basically the same thing in different size of contracts. So MNQ is the micro version of NQ. Okay, so I'm actually going to type this out in a box here. 1 NQ is equal to 10 MNQ. 1 ES is equal to 10 MES, which is micros of ES. So you have 1 NQ, that's 1 mini contract of NQ, is equal to 10 micro contracts of NQ. So it's kind of weird because mini is the bigger version and micro is the smaller. Micro makes sense, but people get it confused when they hear mini. They're like, oh, isn't that the smaller one? No, mini is like your regular NQ contract. Micro is basically a fraction of that. So what are these worth and why do we use all 4? 1 NQ is equal to $20 per point. 1 micro NQ is equal to $2 per point. So I don't recommend any beginner, probably within their first year, to be trading mini contracts. $20 per point is pretty aggressive. Even to this day, especially since I like to scale in and out of trades, I trade with micro contracts. Now, here's the cool thing is that if I want to trade the equivalent of $20 per point, but I don't want to have just one contract in, say I want to scale in and out of the trade, I can just trade 10 micros and that would equal $20 per point. That way, if my trade goes in a certain direction and I want to take some off, I could take off 4 or 5 micros and still have a little bit in the trade, whether I want to take some profit or cut some of my loss. That's why micros are so valuable. And it's the same with ES, just a different value. So 1 ES contract per point is $50. Okay. Whoa. And 1 micro ES is $5. Okay. So same concept there. Now, if you are wondering, okay, what is ES? I thought we trade NQ. Well, the reason why we gauge the price of ES is because ES, which is the S&P 500, NQ, which is the NASDAQ tech companies, are correlated assets. And there's a lot of things that you could sort of use them together that I'll get into later, that you could kind of get little hints of what the market might do. SMTs, different things, whether ES might have swept a high, swept a low, NQ didn't. Okay, now we're, there's certain things, nuances that we could find if we have both of them pulled up, and that is why we care about both. Now, there's no reason why I have to have both ES and MES. You could just have this one right here, but I have all four there because you never know. There might be a week where ES is sort of a little cleaner on the charts, and you might want to take a trade on ES. Down here, this is obviously just the specifics of where price is. It's a little more in-depth information such as volume, open interest, contract size. The front month, okay, now this is important. Futures basically operate off of 4 contracts per year, and I have a chart labeled in my beginner's course on my Discord if you want to go refer to that. What I have here is you'll see NQ 1 exclamation point. That is basically the continuous contract. I don't trade on these. I trade on the actual month contract that we are currently in. I just have these pulled up for the sake of making this video because it's May right now. And if I'm trading on, the May current contract and someone's watching this in October, they might get confused and be like, wait, why does mine look different? So I have continuous contracts up right here, but just know based on what month you're in, it'll show you what individual contract that you're going to be trading. So you can see MNQ M 2026. That is basically the contract that's going to have the most volume within it, and you always want to be trading in that current contract. Like I said, go to my beginner's course and you can actually see which one you should be in depending on what month you're in. And I think that's going to be kind of it as far as setting up your trading view. I don't want to get too deep into other topics like brokers, prop firms, Trade-of-8, all these other things. But if you just basically want to get on TradingView, and please, before you spend a single dollar, get familiar with it, sort of, especially when the market's open, kind of just get familiar with how things look. I'm making this video when the market's closed. It's currently Saturday night, so typically you would see candles moving up and down in live time, but the market's closed, so you can't see that right now. You'll probably see it in the following videos when I make these throughout the week. Yeah, that's basically it. I don't want to overwhelm you guys. This is going to be basically a good stopping point, I think, for this video. You're going to have the app. Take your time. Don't just jump in and spend a bunch of money on this stuff. Not that 22 bucks is a bunch of money, but still, don't waste your money. Especially if you have a lot of questions. Reach out to me, reach out to other people in the comments section, reach out to people and just ask. That's the point of what these videos are. They're educational. Nothing in here is financial advice. It is all just education to start showing you guys how I trade. Most likely, I'm gonna make some sort of follow-up video because I'm sure there's small things that maybe I skipped by, or maybe I could elaborate on a little more for the true beginner. It's just hard when you've been doing this for a few years and you sort of forget just all those little tiny questions that a beginner rightfully has. It's just something that you got to remind yourself of. But if you guys want to take that information and just digest it for a few days, get familiar with the app, set up your settings, similar to mine, get those indicators. Obviously, they're free. They're just within the app. Get familiar with what tools you like. Get your specific tickers and symbols over here that you want to have up. You could have just the 4 that I have, or you could have more. If you want to trade something else, that's fine. If you want to trade Apple stocks or options, I know how to do those things, but I'm not going to give education on them because I just don't do that. So that'll be it for this video. The next video that I make is going to start to get into the official trading strategy that I use, that I have sort of tweaked and developed to be my own over the years. And I'm going to start slowly giving them to you guys so you can absorb them in the correct way and really get a good grasp on these topics. This video might have been a little longer. I don't think that most of the actual episodes for the strategy are going to be as long because I can talk about any of these topics for hours on end. Liquidity or fair value gaps or SMTs or different points of order flow or session times or whatever it is. I can talk about that for hours, but really like 98% of the information, the useful information, can be given in like 20 minutes. And that's what I want for you guys. I don't want you to overcomplicate things because I know how overwhelming it could get. And then all that's going to do is just prevent you guys from continuing to pursue this amazing career. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I hope this was helpful, and I hope to see you in the next episode, which is going to be on the king of all worthwhile strategies, which is liquidity. See you in the next one.